When we're spread out in a tactical formation, it can be a challenge to get everyone turned correctly. So how do the professionals do it? In this video, we'll answer that question and show you how the U.S. Air Force does tactical turns. You can initiate a turn in tactical formation with either a radio call or with the visual signal. For turns up to 30 degrees, you use a radio call for a check turn. Anything more than that, up to 90 degrees, can be called over the radio or signaled with the wing flash in the direction of the turn. When using a wing flash, lead should show the wingman the full plan form to avoid confusion with minor course corrections. This means about 90 degrees of bank. If you think your signal was missed, grab your wingman's attention with the zipper or a double tap of the radio microphone switch, then do the signal again. Just like when we're flying in a straight line, we have a contract for our turns. We'll want to stick to this contract during the turn to help ensure we have the same turn rate and radius. This means our throttle will be in mil power and we will pull enough G to hold altitude and airspeed. Keep an eye on those instruments and make sure those needles stay in place. Remember, our contract airspeed in tactical formation is 350 knots. Unless signaled otherwise, you can assume that a turn is a delayed 90-degree turn. In this turn, one member of the flight starts the turn while the other continues forward a moment before beginning their own turn. We can use this delay to take turns clearing the other flight member's 6 o'clock position. As soon as that turn is signaled, that outside aircraft will begin a 90-degree contract turn. At approximately the 45-degree mark, the second aircraft will turn. A good visual cue for this is when you're looking down the intakes of the other jet. If done correctly, you should end up back in line abreast with your position swapped to the other side. But if you end up out of position, just remember, it's always the wingman's job to get back into the correct position. One of the common causes of being out of position is not following the parameters of the contract. Remember, the contract is mil power and enough G to maintain altitude and airspeed. When you're done with the turn, don't forget to adjust your throttle to get back to the contract speed of 350 knots. You can use this delayed turn technique for 45-degree turns too. The main difference being that the formation will roll out at 45 degrees instead of 90. The wingman will know when to roll out by watching lead. However, if the wingman begins a 90-degree turn, lead can use the radio to call an earlier rollout. As a wingman, always remember that it is your job to get back into position on lead. For 180-degree turns, we have a couple options. The first one is called the hook turn, and like the name suggests, the formation will be tracing a hook shape during the turn. You can signal a hook turn with the radio call of hook and a direction, or you can signal it visually with the wing flash, just like the one used for delayed turns. However, you can only use the visual signal for turns away from the wingman. This is to avoid confusion. If lead signals a turn away and then immediately turns, it lets the wingman know this isn't a delayed turn. Once a hook turn is initiated, both aircraft will make a contract turn. For the first half of the turn, the pilot on the outside of the turn will have to maintain visual since the other pilot will not have a good view. After the 90-degree point of the turn, these roles reverse. After rollout, the formation should be on a heading in the opposite direction. Hook turns are a great choice if you need to fly a racetrack pattern while on patrol. Another option for making a 180-degree turn is the cross turn. Just like the name implies, the formation will cross paths on their way through the turn. With the cross turn, you can get onto a reciprocal heading while also clearing each other 6 o'clock. A cross turn is initiated with a verbal command, and like our other turns, this is a contract turn. There is no visual signal for a cross turn. During the turn, there are 3 things we need to handle: altitude, visual contact, and lateral spacing. Because we're crossing flight paths, we'll need to deconflict to avoid a mid-air collision at the crossing point. We do this by making sure we have an altitude split between aircraft. Since we typically do a cross turn from a starting position of line abreast, we can have up to 2,000 feet of vertical separation and should take full advantage of that. Right at the 90-degree point of the turn, we'll run into another challenge. This is when we're likely to lose sight of the other aircraft. Reacquire visual contact with the other aircraft as soon as possible. The last challenge we'll face is lateral spacing. What this means is that the space between aircraft might end up being different at the end of the turn than what we started with. This all depends on our initial speed and altitude, both of which affect our turn radius. With the large turn radius, lateral separation at the end of the turn could be really high even with good initial spacing. On the other hand, if you start with really wide spacing, you can end up closer together at the end. Now there's one final thing I want to go over. In this series, we've talked a lot about contract speeds and the power settings that we use to make formation flying smoother. So far, all the settings we've discussed are the ones right out of the Air Force training publications, which were developed for the T-38. These settings work great in the DCS F5 since its performance is pretty close to the T-38's. Now, what do you do when you move to an aircraft that has significantly different performance? The answer is straightforward. Every contract has 3 words attached to it, unless briefed otherwise. If these contracts don't work for you, then brief another contract. When you're flying a high-performance jet, you might find it easier to stick with the 400 or 450 knot speed. So include that in your briefing if that works better for you. Following these steps will make your life easier while trying to maintain formation and accomplish your mission. Tactical turns are something you can practice anytime you're flying with the wingman, and the more you practice, the better you'll get. I hope you found this video useful, and thanks for watching.